Hi everybody. It's kind of late tonight. A couple of my friends were hoping for some sourdough discard recipes, and since I'm new to sourdough, I'm also new to some of these recipes. I'm going to make a carrot cake tonight. Cross our fingers, it will be a first for me and you if you try it. It's going to start off with the wet ingredients. I don't like to use two bowls because I don't want to make a huge mess, so we're going to put the wet ingredients in first. We're going to start out with the eggs. There's supposed to be 4 of them that are supposed to be whisked up individually. I can't find my whisk, so I'm just going to use a different tool, which is my bread hook that I use, and I'm going to put those 4 eggs in there. For people that get fresh eggs, they know that a good egg is sunny and yellow and almost orange. I used to get my eggs from this lovely FBI agent at the Washington field office named Helene. She was in charge of giving polygraph exams, and she used to have her own geese and ducks and chickens, and I would pay for bird feed and she would supply me with eggs. She was my dealer. And this is kind of, yellow, but it's not orange. Costco do better. I would prefer an orange egg or farm fresh eggs, but they cost a lot. So we're gonna put those eggs in, and then once we put the eggs in, we're gonna put in the oil. It was 4 eggs. This is gonna be 167 grams of oil, vegetable oil, or 5.9 ounces of oil. We're gonna stir that up with our egg mix. And then we're gonna do 153 grams of white sugar and 153 grams of brown sugar. Again, I don't like using too many bowls, so we're just gonna plop that all in at once and stir that up. Then we're gonna put in some vanilla extract, which is 8 grams of vanilla. I might have added a little bit more just because I love the taste of vanilla. And we are gonna stir this till it's all whisked up, and then we're gonna add our discard. The discard that it calls for is 202 grams of discard at room temperature. And I'm supposed to stir until glossy, but first I'd like to get this mixed. And this kind of looks like a little bit like brown diarrhea right now, so hopefully we'll fix it. I'm sure it tastes great because it's got that vanilla and brown sugar in it. Now comes my sourdough. Speaking of eggs, I'm going to tell you a story about my lovely daughter, Michaela. The first year that we moved to California, she wanted a job and she decided to work for Sloat Garden Center, and she was great at it. She loved being around the plants. Who isn't happy when they're shopping for plants? So she was very happy. A lot of her girlfriends worked at this plant center. She liked watering, delivering. She liked everything about working at the plant store. And one day when she was there, she saw a turkey get hit by a car and didn't think much of it, besides a little saddened. And later, one of the managers at Sloat found the nest of that turkey in the back. And my daughter said, well, what are you gonna do with those turkey eggs? And the manager said, well, I guess we gotta get rid of them because the mom just got hit by a car. And my daughter said, hold on, you're not getting rid of those. And she didn't know it was against the law to touch turkey eggs in the state of California, and nor did I, because I didn't know anything about. We had just moved here recently. So she comes home in the garage and she has these eggs in a bucket. And she walks into the house and she goes, I have something to show you. And I'm like, what do you got? And she goes, a bucket of eggs. And I said, what kind of eggs? Because, snakes have eggs. They could be rattlers or something. I didn't know what it was. And she goes, they're turkey eggs. And I said, well, how do you know that? And she said, well, we saw the mom get killed and they were gonna throw out the turkey eggs. And I know that you wouldn't want me to do that. So I put a towel over them. They were warm in the sun. What can you do about it? So I quickly access the internet like every mom would do. And it says to put them under a light. And I tell her, I said, okay, we'll try. I'll get the graphic t-shirt light that I have, because I had a red light for that to make graphic design t-shirts, and I said, we'll put it over a Tupperware bucket, put them on a towel and keep them warm, and then tomorrow I'll go out to the feed store. I'm familiar with feed stores, I used to ride horses. I said, we'll go out there and see if we can get an incubator. She goes, that sounds like a great idea. And I say, okay, that's what we'll do. So I'm gonna continue to cook. So at this point in time, you wanna add your dry ingredients. This is 244 grams of flour. It says stir until glossy. I don't know if that's glossy, it just looks wet to me, so like glossy. I didn't go to culinary school. So we're gonna put in 244 grams of flour. Make sure that's all in. We're gonna put in 9 grams of baking soda, and then 2.8 grams of baking powder. And then we're gonna put in, where's my cinnamon? Oh, then we're gonna put in 6 grams of cinnamon. I added a little bit more because I'm not putting in nutmeg or cardamom, which is just a pinch because I don't have any. So that's how we do things at the Cox household. If we don't have it, we don't add it. So I'm gonna put in a pinch of salt because it says to add a pinch of salt. I guess when you do that, you're also supposed to put it over your shoulder too, because that's for good luck. I'll throw it in the sink. And now we're gonna continue to stir this all up. Okay, it said don't over stir this batter. So we're not gonna, we're just gonna try to incorporate that flour because we have a whole bunch of wet ingredients. I did a cheat. I had hard root ginger, and it's just 2 grams of ginger, but so I chopped a little piece of this, and when I put it in my food processor, I chopped it into the carrot mixture. And then I also, and that's what my carrot mixture looks like, it's almost a full cup. The carrots are 304 grams of carrots, 102 grams of walnuts, and 122 grams of pineapple. I would tell you, like, I used a small can of sliced pineapple that I chopped up. And again, a cheat, because I don't like dirtying stuff. When I used my processor, I did the pineapple and the walnuts together. I'm sure it's to taste, so it doesn't really matter if these measurements are exact, I guess, except for the carrots. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stir this up and get it so it's slightly glossy. Now it's starting to look a little glossy. And we're just gonna mix that up. I have preheated my oven to 350, and I have already put my parchment in my pans right here. So a lot of people, what I just do is press my pans together. I will get these wet because what happens is parchment is parch. And the reason it's parch is because you're supposed to get it wet in most instances, and that makes it not parch. So after I cut it to shape, I wring out the water. And again, hydration, much like the people that put the ice cubes in their sourdough bread. Hydration makes things rise. I'm gonna probably also put a pan of water in my oven because I like my stuff to rise. I'm gonna get a paper, well, we'll just use a paper towel. I'm off screen. See, it's not perfect here. And this could be an epic failure. We won't know until it comes out of the oven. So I'm still stirring up my batter. So my daughter brings home these eggs, and the next day I buy an incubator. And we watch the eggs for 23 days. We rotate them, we check the temperature, we have a spray bottle for humidity. And honest to goodness, I kept on looking at them, trying to flashlight them to see if there was a creature inside, and I never could tell. Honest to God, I was like, I have no idea if these are just completely dead eggs that I'm sitting and rotating for 23 days. And I have dogs, so I was like, where's a safe place that's warm enough to keep these babies in case they come out safe? So I put them in my master closet in my master bedroom because I could rotate them. I would set an alarm to rotate the eggs, and I would get up, rotate the eggs and miss them. Be like, what am I gonna do with this? So there were 17 eggs, and I thought, my goodness, like I read on the internet, it says you're lucky to get 4 living eggs out of a batch of 17. And I was thinking, that's fine. I could probably find a home for 4 turkeys, because once I have something as a pet, it is not going to ever get eaten. I'm not going to give it to a farmer that's going to sell it later for food. That's just not in my personality. We're going to incorporate the carrots, dump them in. I have multicolored carrots that I got from Costco. Those taste great. I like them better than the orange, so that's why we had purple, white, and orange in there. So those don't really look like carrots, but they are carrots because they're all different colored carrots. So now it's kind of lumpy, almost looks like banana bread. Take a look at it. So we have these little turkey eggs in my closet that I'm rotating every day. And sure enough, on day 23, I see the starts of little holes from the beaks inside the eggs. And even my dog would come over and smell the eggs and could sense that they were alive at that point. I guess they emit some sort of smell, but my dog would come over and stick its head in the container and take a look. And so this was quite the science project for my family. Everybody became fairly engaged. Both my kids were home at this point in time because this was 6 years ago. And we start watching the eggs hatch. And they're having a lot of trouble. And I don't know if mom helps them in the wild. So we look up how to birth eggs, and we start taking tweezers and a little warm water, because we heard that the egg will shrink wrap around the baby if it doesn't get out in enough time. So my daughter and I are sitting on stools over this plastic container filled with eggs, and we're tweezing open all these little eggs. And it was almost a minor miracle, but all 17 of the brood hatched. So now I have 17 baby turkeys. And my husband's like, wow, like you're a good mommy. You have 17 baby chicks. So I think, well, what's the best place to put 17 chicks other than in my master shower so they don't make a mess and I can rinse stuff with a scrub brush. So we keep them warm, and they're in the incubator for the first couple days, and then I make some pens for them, and I get some flexible chicken wire, and I do the entire course of my hill, and I live in the suburbs, and I make like a 30-foot turkey run outside. And we have 17 turkeys, and I invite my neighbors over to see them and pet them, and they have long necks, and I'll tell you what, turkeys are super smart. I could call them. I had these little dried worms, and I'd say, hey babies, and they'd all run, and I'd put my hands out, and they'd run right next to me every time I put my hands out like wings, because instinctually they want to be near mom, and the first person they saw was my daughter and I, so we could just go, hey babies, and the turkeys would run to our feet, and I started to name them, and we all got very attached. And my husband and I are like, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know, but we can't keep them here. It's against the HOA rules. We can't have turkeys in our yard. So we start asking around. My husband works at Lawrence Livermore, and Livermore has a lot of farms. So he puts out his feelers out at the office, and he finds this really wonderful woman named Debbie. And Debbie has a 10-acre farm. And she already rescues donkeys and horses and pigs and anything that anybody doesn't want. She has a duck coop that actually could be at any local zoo. It's so nice. And she keeps these animals away from the predators. And she says she'll take all 17 of my turkeys till they can roost, and then we're gonna let them free in the wild. And I'm like, it's a minor miracle that, so we're driving out to Debbie's place, which is probably an hour and a half from our house, but we think it's worth it because we've fallen in love with these turkeys. And I'm crying, and my husband's starting to tear up, and we're thinking, like, how can we keep these turkeys? And we're like, we can't keep the turkeys. They aren't puppies, we just can't do it. So we get out to Debbie's place, and she has this beautiful pen. It's probably 20 feet by 20 feet. She's put in a tree so they could start to learn to roost. I have bought her feed so she can get the turkey started. And anyway, she keeps the turkeys. The turkeys are at this point like 3 months old, so they're like probably 5 to 6 pounds a piece. And I have put them in extra large dog kennels in the back of our SUV, which is huge, Nissan Armada, that we piled these turkeys in. And we're driving it, an hour and a half to get out there. And she has this beautiful pen. So Debbie keeps them for another, 3 more months. Now they're full grown. She lets them loose. They know how to roost. There's beautiful oak trees on the property, and we think, we've got this solved, right? Like, they're gonna live at Debbie's house. Well, unfortunately, Debbie lives next to farmers that have beautiful gardens, and my turkeys that had learned how to roost, that we would go out and visit, that still knew us, they decided that their vegetables were delicious and started eating them. And a couple of her neighbors said, you're gonna have to do something, or we're gonna have your turkeys for Thanksgiving. And we're like horrified. So Debbie decides that her and her husband are gonna load them up in the horse trailer, because now they're very large, and a bird sanctuary has offered to take care of the turkeys. So she takes all the turkeys out to the bird sanctuary that has peacocks. And of course, because our turkeys are dominant and strong, and a group of 17, because broods usually don't have 17 birds, they kind of start to pick on the peacocks, and the bird sanctuary says enough, like they can't beat up on our peacocks. So Debbie and her husband then pack up the turkeys again and move them out to, I think, areas close to a local lake that's closer to Yosemite, where we know that there's streams and forests. The birds know how to forage for themselves now, so it's not a concern. And I'm saddened because, I named them and they knew who I was even when I visited. And I've always wondered if they had the ability to come home. And we have a huge brood of turkeys in our neighborhood, and I often will walk by the brood in our neighborhood and say, hey babies, just in case they're my birds and they're gonna run back. But I never ate turkey again. We have lasagna now for Thanksgiving. I have started cooking domestically bred turkey for my family, but I just can't manage to do it. Benjamin Franklin once said that turkey should have been our national birds because they're noble creatures. They display their emotion through their skin color, which is red, white, and blue, if you guys don't know. And they only though the dominant male gets to breed with the other hens, they protect each other, and they're very noble, and they take care of each other, which is why they stick together, whereas the eagle is kind of a thief. And since I think that our national bird should have also been the turkey instead of the eagle that sometimes steal things, I often think that should have been our national bird as well, with Benjamin Franklin. So when you're looking at your local Easter eggs and somebody has produced a beautiful egg for you, and they have to take the time to keep those animals away from predators and let them be on free range and go out there and feed them every day and make sure that they're hatched and sit by them and sometimes help them get out of the egg, and you have these lovely eggs for breakfast on your table. As you open your Easter basket for next week and you see some beautiful eggs, the amount of time that our farmers put into the work, let me tell you, I can't tell you how hard it was to bring those turkeys every night into our garage to keep them away from raccoons and hawks, and keep an eye on them to make sure that they grew up. And for my turkeys that are out there in the wild, I hope I'll see you someday on the golf course here with the rest of the broods. And I'm gonna put these cakes into these tins, and then I'm gonna clip in the final version of the cake at the end after it's frosted. That's the recipe. I will post the ingredients on the posted section as a link for people that want to use their sourdough discard. We feed those pets every day, and half of that discard goes in the trash. So this is what you can do with it and keep your family happy. Carrot cake is a perfect cake for Easter. Bunnies and birds. Have a nice day. See y'all later. Bye. Hi everybody. It is 11 o'clock here and getting ready to go to bed. I wanted to show you the cake, but it was an epic failure. I went out to go get powdered sugar and frost it, and the middle of the cake was not done. And even though it looked like it was done and I did the toothpick test, when I came back to frost it, I noticed that there was starting to get like a little crater. And apparently with all the wet ingredients for the carrots and the pineapple, I didn't wait for it to cook long enough. And even though when you put the toothpick in, it should tell you whether it's gooey. It wasn't gooey, but it wasn't done either. Kind of like a wet brownie. So if you want to see my cake, there it is. The trash. So I got a whole load of dishes to do in the morning. So, you know, I'm inspired to try harder next time. Clearly, 35 minutes is not enough time for 2 rounds. I should have pressed the middle of the cake to see if it sprung back. I failed to do that. So for all you, and I've been cooking my whole life. That's the first cake I've ever had not done in the center. So because it had so many wet ingredients, I underestimated. I will try again and try to produce something that works out so I could show you, but I promise to be honest, and that was a big effing failure. So good night, everybody. See you later.